Captain Harper moved through the hangar with the practiced precision of someone who had done it 1,000 times. Her flight suit zipped up neatly, boots scuffed from countless sorties, and her hair tied back in the strict military fashion. She exuded quiet competence. The C-130 Hercules waited for her, massive and utilitarian, its gray steel hull reflecting the early morning sunlight. It wasn't sleek like a fighter jet. It wasn't built for speed or acrobatics. It was a workhorse, a reliable transporter of cargo, troops, and sometimes hope, and for it was home. The hum of activity in the hangar was familiar and comforting. Crew members moved with synchronized efficiency, checking fuel lines, inspecting hydraulics, and conducting last-minute maintenance. Paused for a moment, nodding to Lieutenant Sanders, her co-pilot. "Morning, Captain," he greeted, coffee in hand, and the typical mix of exhaustion and excitement that came with military mornings. "Morning, Sanders," replied, her voice calm but precise. "Weather's holding steady, but keep an eye on the west front. Winds could shift." Her attention to detail had saved them more than once, and her crew trusted her implicitly. That trust wasn't something she took lightly. It had been earned through years of routine missions and small crises handled with unwavering focus. As the crew boarded, performed her pre-flight checks. The ritual was comforting, a steady rhythm in a life defined by schedules, missions, and endless coordination. She checked the engines, ran through communication protocols, and double-checked the cargo manifest. Every box, every crate, every piece of equipment mattered. One mistake could ripple into disaster. Her hands moved confidently, the motions practiced but not mechanical. She cared about the mission, and more importantly, she cared about the people she transported. Pilots of fighters may get the glory, but had learned the quiet satisfaction of reliability, the kind that could make or break operations behind the scenes. Yet beneath the calm exterior, a spark of ambition simmered. Had always been fascinated by fighter jets. She would watch the F-22s and F-35s streak across the sky in simulation or training exercises, their agility, speed, and precision filling her with both awe and longing. She had flown with precision, yes, but the thrill of combat maneuvers, of making split-second decisions that could change outcomes, was something she only observed. She dreamed of that life in fleeting moments, tucked away like a secret diary. She knew her path as a transport pilot was crucial, necessary even, but sometimes she couldn't help wondering what it would feel like to be the one receiving the call sign that others respected and feared in equal measure. The engines roared to life, vibrating through the hangar floor, signaling the beginning of another mission. Climbed into the cockpit, settled into her seat, and adjusted the straps of her harness. Sanders mirrored her movements and they exchanged a brief nod. They were ready. Routine today, reminded herself. Another supply run, nothing out of the ordinary. The destination was a forward operating base in the southwest, a 2-hour flight through predictable airspace. Simple, straightforward, and safe, or so it seemed. The plane taxied to the runway, ran final checks on instruments, communication channels, and radar systems. She thought about the soldiers who would be receiving supplies, rations, medical kits, spare parts, and the crews who depended on her to deliver them on time. Responsibility wasn't glamorous, but it mattered. As the wheels lifted off the runway, felt the familiar pull of gravity shift beneath her. The C-130 climbed steadily, powerful and deliberate, a metallic bird built for endurance. Above the clouds, the world seemed quiet. The sun glinted off the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. Scanned her instruments, monitoring altitude, fuel, and radar signals. Nothing unusual appeared, yet her mind stayed alert. A pilot's intuition was rarely wrong. It had saved her crew before and would continue to do so. She allowed herself a small smile. Flying was a meditation, a dance of precision and awareness. Even in the humdrum of transport missions, there was beauty in the mechanics, in the steady reliability of controlled flight. She glanced at the crew behind her, some dozing, some quietly reviewing checklists. Their trust in her never wavered. Felt a surge of pride, not the kind that comes from accolades or recognition, but the quiet, deep satisfaction of knowing she kept them safe. This was her realm, her domain. The cockpit was a sanctuary, a place where preparation, skill, and focus converged to create order out of potential chaos. It was a different kind of heroism, often unnoticed, uncelebrated, but no less vital. Thoughts wandered briefly to the radar systems of the elite jets she admired from afar. What would it be like to coordinate with those pilots, to be part of their world, to feel the electric thrill of high-stakes maneuvers? She shook the thought away. Today was routine. She had no illusions about being more than what she was yet, and perhaps that was just as well. For now, she was Harper, transport pilot, steady hand, calm voice in a cockpit full of hum and machinery. The horizon stretched endlessly ahead. Every flight was a story, every mission a thread woven into the larger tapestry of service. Had flown countless sorties, delivered hundreds of tons of cargo, and seen the quiet gratitude of those who relied on her work. Yet as she traced the cloud lines with her eyes, a strange feeling tingled in the back of her mind. Something was different today, subtle, almost imperceptible. A slight anomaly on the radar, a flicker in the pattern. Routine, she told herself. But there was a spark of anticipation, the faintest hint that the ordinary could, at any moment, become extraordinary. Settled into the rhythm of flight, unaware that this mission, the routine one, would be the one to change everything. Somewhere on the radar, unseen and unassuming, the first threads of her larger story were beginning to form. And though she did not yet know it, the call sign Viper would soon take on a meaning far greater than she had ever imagined. Harper had barely settled into the steady hum of cruising altitude when the first blip appeared on her radar. At first it was faint, a flicker, a ghost of a signal, but her instincts, honed over years of transport missions, detected it immediately. She frowned, scanning her instruments. "Sanders," she said, her voice calm but alert, "we've got something on the east quadrant, not in the flight plan." Sanders leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Could be weather." "Unlikely," replied. "Altitude, speed, trajectory, it doesn't match atmospheric interference. Keep your eyes on it." Her fingers danced over the controls, adjusting frequencies, cross-referencing air traffic reports. The blips, small, fast-moving dots now appearing in irregular patterns, moving in ways that didn't make sense for civilian craft. Her mind raced, but her voice remained steady as she relayed data to ground control. "Viper, confirm coordinates and altitude of unidentified aircraft," the voice crackled over the radio. Call sign slipped out automatically, a name she had used for years without fanfare. Now it carried weight she hadn't realized. "Affirmative, control," she replied. "3 blips west to east, altitude 32,000. Estimated speed 600 knots, unidentified and approaching restricted airspace." There was a pause on the line, just long enough for her to feel her pulse quicken. She had dealt with anomalies before, whether deviations, unregistered drones, minor airspace violations, but something about this felt different. She was being listened to closely, not just by ground control, but by forces far beyond her usual operations. Minutes later, a new voice entered the comms, clipped and professional. "Viper, this is Major Jackson, F-35 Squadron Lead. We've got your coordinates. Hold pattern, maintain visual on targets, and stand by." His eyes widened slightly. F-35s. Her heart skipped a beat. These were the fighters she had admired from afar, the elite pilots who executed lightning-fast maneuvers with precision and grace. And now they were responding directly to her. She took a deep breath, grounding herself. Panic wouldn't help. "Copy that, Major Jackson. Maintaining visual. Estimated trajectory heading northeast. I'll keep you updated." Her fingers flew over the communication panel, relaying speed, direction, and altitude. Sanders watched, impressed, as calm precision guided their aircraft through what was suddenly a high-stakes coordination mission. The tension in the cockpit was palpable, but she carried it with serene authority. Minutes dragged, every second stretching as the unidentified aircraft moved closer to civilian airspace. Called out adjustments, directing F-35s to intercept while keeping them clear of commercial and military traffic below. Her instructions were clear, concise, and immediately actionable, qualities that Major Jackson would note carefully. "Viper, your coordination is exceptional," he said after a tense pause. "We're impressed by your situational awareness. Keep us updated on altitude shifts." Suppressed a small smile, focusing on the task. She had been a transport pilot her entire career, relied upon for logistics and cargo, rarely seen as pivotal in a tactical situation. But now, here she was in command of the scenario, her voice shaping the response of the Air Force's most advanced jets. She realized something profound. Her expertise, honed in routine missions, was just as valuable in high-stakes situations as a fighter pilot's reflexes. The unknown aircraft made erratic maneuvers, testing the limits of tracking systems. His mind worked at lightning speed. She calculated speeds, estimated possible flight paths, and relayed adjustments. Every directive she issued was critical. One misstep could endanger civilians, her crew, or the intercepting jets. "Viper, you're clear to direct intercept," Major Jackson said finally. "Engage only if targets cross civilian zone." Nodded even though he couldn't see her. "Copy that. Holding pattern until confirmation. Estimated entry into restricted airspace in 30 seconds. Sanders glanced at her, awe evident in his expression. "I've never seen you like this," he said quietly. "You're commanding them." Didn't respond. Her focus was absolute. The seconds ticked down, hearts pounding in sync with the hum of the engines. Then the first F-35 surged ahead, climbing and banking precisely where she predicted. Calculations were perfect. The unknown aircraft's erratic movements were countered by the fighter's controlled interception. "Viper, you've got great instincts," Major Jackson commended. "How long have you been flying transports?" Allowed herself a brief laugh, though tension remained. "Since I was commissioned, sir. 2,700 hours in the air. Never done this before, but thank you." The F-35s executed the intercept flawlessly, maintaining safety protocols while signaling the unidentified aircraft. Guided them through the maneuver, her voice calm and authoritative, each command executed with precision. Within minutes, the unknown aircraft changed course and exited restricted airspace, leaving and her crew with a mixture of relief and exhilaration. "Good work, Viper," Major Jackson said over the comms as they broke contact. "Your coordination kept this clean. Exceptional job." Exhaled, her hands still on the controls. For the first time in her career, she felt her impact reach beyond her transport missions. She had been ordinary, predictable, invisible in the hierarchy of pilots. But now, she had made a difference in a real-world scenario, guiding elite fighters with her judgment, precision, and calm under pressure. Sanders glanced at her with newfound respect. "Captain, that was incredible. You weren't just our pilot, you were the mission." His pulse slowed, a quiet pride warming her. She realized her career, once confined to cargo and routine runs, had just shifted. Somewhere in the military, the call sign Viper was no longer just a name on a radio frequency. It carried weight, authority, and respect. As the C-130 resumed its path toward the forward operating base, allowed herself a small, private smile. Today, nothing had exploded. Nobody had been harmed. Yet in those tense minutes, she had stepped into a new role, one that demanded skill, clarity, and courage she hadn't fully acknowledged before. Her ordinary life as a transport pilot was changing. Something extraordinary was beginning, and Harper, with her steady hands and calm voice, had just taken the first step. The sun had climbed higher, casting a golden hue across the cockpit as Harper adjusted her heading, scanning instruments for any lingering anomalies. The C-130 hummed steadily beneath her, a reliable giant amidst the shifting sky. But the calm routine of her mission had vanished. The F-35 squadron under Major Jackson's command was still in the airspace, and his mind replayed every calculation, every command she had issued. She couldn't help the small swell of pride that had arisen. For the first time, she wasn't just a transport pilot. She was a strategist, a commander, a voice that shaped action at the highest levels. Major Jackson's voice came over the radio, clipped and professional. "Viper, maintain visual on your coordinates. We're impressed with your tracking. Keep us updated on any altitude or trajectory changes." Responded immediately, reporting new blips, minor course corrections, and potential hazards. The F-35 pilots were relying on her precision, and she rose to the challenge naturally. Every command was deliberate, her tone firm yet calm, guiding jets built for extreme agility with nothing more than her voice and a steady hand on the controls. Sanders, her co-pilot, sat silently beside her, eyes wide as he observed her transformation. Had always been competent, meticulous, and reliable, but this was different. The presence of fighter pilots, elite in skill and reputation, didn't intimidate her. Instead, she felt an unspoken connection, a shared purpose that went beyond rank or aircraft type. Each adjustment she suggested, each prediction of flight paths, was met with immediate compliance. The C-130 may have been a lumbering transport plane, but in its hands, it became a command hub, orchestrating the sky around her with precision. "Viper," Jackson's voice came again, now tinged with genuine respect. "You've got excellent situational awareness. We've reviewed your coordination. You anticipated moves that even some of our lead pilots wouldn't have predicted. Excellent work." Allowed herself a faint smile. Recognition from fighters, elite pilots trained for high-stakes maneuvers, was rare for someone in her position. Yet she didn't let it inflate her ego. Focus remained her anchor. Lives, equipment, and operations depended on her clarity, and she intended to maintain it. The unknown aircraft, the source of the commotion earlier, now appeared to be stabilizing its course but remained vigilant. Every instinct told her not to relax. Radar readings flickered sporadically, altitude shifts varied, and the pattern was unpredictable. She recalculated intercept points in real time, issuing precise commands. F-35 Alpha, adjust heading 20 degrees north. Bravo, maintain altitude 3,000 higher. Civilian zone clearance confirmed. Estimated intercept in 30 seconds. Each instruction was crisp, factual, and actionable. His voice carried confidence born from experience and calm decisiveness. Below, the world seemed deceptively peaceful. Clouds stretched in soft waves, and the faint glimmer of rivers reflected sunlight far beneath the airspace. Yet above, tension crackled like static electricity. Fighter jets moved with lethal precision, guided entirely by predictions. She felt the strange thrill of responsibility. Her voice alone was shaping the trajectory of aircraft capable of breaking the sound barrier. One miscalculation and disaster could follow. She thrived in this pressure, every sense attuned to speed, movement, and consequence. Viper confirmed speed and heading of unknown craft, requesting updated vector calculations. Jackson's voice broke through her concentration. Hands were steady, fingers dancing over the panel as she calculated angles, velocities, and altitudes. 3 blips still northeast bound, heading 45. Estimated velocity 620 knots. Adjusted intercept point plotted. Civilian zone still clear. Engaging only if necessary, she reported. Every word was deliberate, authoritative. She knew the pilots trusted her judgment implicitly, and she didn't take that lightly. Minutes passed like hours, the tension in the cockpit nearly palpable. Sanders stole glances at her, silently communicating awe and disbelief. Was aware of it but didn't falter. Focus was everything. And then, almost imperceptibly, the unknown craft altered its trajectory, moving away from restricted airspace. The F-35s adjusted accordingly, intercept maneuvers executed with smooth precision, their sleek bodies cutting through clouds. Calculations had guided them without error. She allowed herself a quiet exhale, the first sign of relief since the encounter began. "Viper," Jackson said, voice firm but approving, "you've kept the situation stable. Excellent coordination. I'll be recommending your role in future joint operations. Your predictive accuracy is exceptional." Blinked, processing the words. Her routine world of cargo missions, supply runs, and quiet flights had shifted irreversibly. The call sign she had used for years, unremarkable in the grand hierarchy of the Air Force, now carried weight. Viper meant more than her identity. It meant trust, skill, and leadership under pressure. The remainder of the flight was less eventful but far from ordinary. Maintain the course toward the forward operating base, continuously monitoring airspace, checking for residual anomalies, and coordinating with minor traffic in the vicinity. Every small calculation, every report, reinforced her competence. She was no longer simply ferrying cargo. She was an active participant in strategic operations, bridging the gap between transport logistics and tactical decision-making. The realization sent a thrill through her. She had always respected the fighter pilots, but now they respected her. Landing at the base was uneventful but satisfying. Taxied the C-130 to the hangar, shutting down engines with the familiar ritual of pre-flight checks in reverse. Sanders offered a quiet, awed "Captain, that was incredible," smiled faintly, shrugging modestly. "Just doing my job," she replied. But inside she knew this was different. This mission would be remembered, not because of explosive combat but because of the precision, calm, and insight she had displayed. Later, as completed her debrief with ground control, she felt the subtle shift in perception. Officers who had previously dismissed her quiet competence now regarded her as someone capable of handling situations beyond her standard remit. Even Sanders, her loyal co-pilot, seemed to see her in a new light, allowed herself a quiet moment of reflection. Today, she had stepped beyond the invisible ceiling of her career. Today, the transport pilot became something more. Today, the call sign Viper was heard and respected in the skies. As night approached, returned to her quarters, mind buzzing but body exhausted. She thought about the F-35 pilots, the tension, the rapid calculations, and the responsibility she had held effortlessly. For years, she had believed her life would be defined by cargo, schedules, and routine missions. Yet in those fleeting moments, she glimpsed what lay beyond the ordinary. Her quiet ambition had found a foothold, and the world, at least the world above her, had taken notice. Harper, transport pilot, was no longer just routine. She was Viper. The days after the F-35 encounter felt surreal for Harper. Back at her squadron, life should have returned to routine cargo runs and supply deliveries, yet nothing was ordinary anymore. Ground control and command officers now approached her with questions, assignments, and proposals that felt foreign. Had always flown with precision, earning respect quietly, but suddenly her expertise was in demand. Her calm under pressure during the anomaly had caught the attention of the Air Force's elite. She had been a transport pilot. Now, she was on the cusp of something far greater. One morning, she received orders to report to a tactical operations center. The notice was brief, but the tone carried weight. Pulse quickened. For years, she had followed orders without expectation, quietly excelling in a background role. This was different. She entered the operations center to find a room full of fighter pilots, intelligence officers, and communications specialists. Many of the pilots regarded her skeptically, aware of her transport-only background. Some smirked subtly, others barely concealed doubt, felt the scrutiny but refused to let it shake her. She had earned her place, even if they hadn't realized it yet. Major Jackson, the F-35 squadron lead who had previously commended her, greeted her with a small, approving nod. "Harper, welcome. We're running a joint exercise today, and your coordination skills will be essential. I trust your earlier work was memorable." Offered a modest smile. "Thank you, sir, I'll do my best." Her assignment was immediately clear. Monitor incoming intelligence, track multiple aircraft in real time, and coordinate movements between the F-35s and supporting units. The scenario was complex, more than any transport mission she had flown. Multiple threats, civilian traffic, and unplanned variables created a web of potential chaos. Felt the familiar pull of adrenaline. She had never experienced this level of responsibility, yet the instinctive focus she relied upon in her transport missions now served her in a higher-stakes arena. Simulation began, radar blips spreading across the screens like living things. identified unknown contacts, quickly distinguishing between neutral, friendly, and potentially hostile aircraft. Pilots murmured among themselves, quietly observing her decisions. "Harper, you're taking over vector control," one asked, skeptical. Calm eyes met his. "Yes, you'll follow my instructions. I've run the calculations." The room fell silent, each operator aware of the importance of precise communication. Was no longer behind the scenes. She was orchestrating the operation, guiding fighters through invisible corridors in the sky. The scenario intensified. Two aircraft veered unexpectedly toward a civilian air corridor, forcing to adjust intercept points in real time. Her mind calculated trajectories, factoring in speed, altitude, and pilot response time. F-35 Alpha, adjust heading 15 degrees south. Bravo, maintain altitude 3,000 higher. Civilian clearance, she instructed. Each directive was executed immediately, the pilots trusting her judgment despite their initial skepticism. Minutes stretched like hours. Pulse was steady, her focus unwavering. The simulation was designed to test instinct and strategy, and she thrived under pressure. Every decision mattered. One misstep could simulate disaster. As the scenario reached its climax, an unidentified aircraft breached restricted airspace. Pilots hesitated, unsure of the correct engagement protocol. His voice, calm yet commanding, cut through uncertainty. "Engage only if the threat crosses civilian zones. Maintain formation. Intercept at Vector 34-7. The fighters followed her instructions without question, their trust in her judgment complete. By the end of the exercise, had successfully guided every aircraft, neutralizing the threat without causing collateral damage. Even the skeptical pilots were forced to acknowledge her skill. Murmurs of respect rippled through the room. Major Jackson's nod of approval was subtle but unmistakable. "Well done, Viper. You handled that with the precision of someone with years of tactical experience." Exhaled quietly, realizing the magnitude of her accomplishment. She had not only survived scrutiny, but had proven herself in a domain she had never imagined entering. Yet with recognition came new challenges. Now faced the subtle politics of elite fighter units, subtle glances of doubt, hushed comments questioning her experience, and the constant pressure to perform perfectly. One pilot remarked, barely audibly, "She's a transport pilot, what does she really know?" Heard it, of course, but ignored the undercurrent of doubt. She knew her skill, precision, and calm focus could not be debated. They were irrefutable in the air. Confidence became her armor, humility her guide. Later, after the exercise, returned to her C-130, the massive plane now feeling both familiar and insufficient for the new dimension of her abilities. Sanders noticed her reflective silence. "You've changed, Captain," he said. "I can see it in the way they look at you. You're different now." Nodded, glancing at the fading horizon. "Different, yes, but the mission hasn't changed. We still deliver cargo, still support troops. What's different is, now I can see the bigger picture. I can influence it. I can make a difference even before the planes take off." That evening documented the day's lessons meticulously. She reflected on timing, communication, and tactical thinking, all skills she had been using instinctively but never fully acknowledged. The realization was humbling. Her quiet years as a transport pilot had prepared her for this unexpected elevation. She had been ready all along, she simply hadn't been called to prove it. As she prepared for rest, a final message appeared on her comms, a simple acknowledgement from Major Jackson. "Viper, outstanding work. Expect further assignments soon. You're officially on our radar." Allowed herself a small smile. Her life as a transport pilot had shifted irreversibly. From routine missions to coordinating elite fighters, she was stepping into a world she had only observed from afar. The call sign Viper now carried meaning, authority, and expectation. And in the quiet moments before sleep, Harper understood something fundamental. Her career was no longer defined by limits others imposed. Her skill, calm judgment, and determination had opened doors to responsibilities she had never imagined. The ordinary had given way to extraordinary, and the pilot who once flew unseen cargo across predictable skies now held influence over forces and outcomes that could shape missions and save lives. The journey was only beginning. Harper sat in the operations center, staring at the sprawling radar screens before her. The room buzzed with quiet intensity. Multiple F-35 squadrons were on rotation, moving through simulated high-threat scenarios designed to push pilots and coordinators to their limits. Today's task was clear and far from routine. She would coordinate an airspace teeming with friendly aircraft, hostile threats, and simulated civilian zones, requiring split-second decision-making. For the first time, she wasn't just guiding a few jets. She was orchestrating a miniature air war, a responsibility that demanded precision, foresight, and unshakable focus. The simulation began. Radar blips moved unpredictably across the display, representing hostile drones, friendly transport planes, and neutral aircraft. His mind raced, analyzing vectors, calculating speeds, and projecting possible trajectories. Sanders stood behind her, silently monitoring her commands as he had for years. Yet this was different. This wasn't routine cargo transport. Each decision carried immediate consequences, and his calm voice would dictate the success or failure of the operation. Viper, confirm hostile blip at Vector 47. Engaging, came Major Jackson's voice, clipped and professional. Eyes flicked across the data. Hold engagement. Confirm civilian corridor clear first. Recommend intercept Vector 34-7. Maintain altitude separation of 3,000. Her voice was deliberate, measured, every word carefully chosen to convey urgency without panic. The F-35 pilots followed precisely, trusting the calculations of a transport pilot they once doubted. The simulation intensified. Hostile drones moved erratically, attempting to flank friendly aircraft. Issued rapid adjustments. Alpha Squadron, Vector 20 North. Bravo, maintain formation, altitude 3,000. Civilian zone clearance confirmed. Each command required predictive calculation, how the drones would respond, how the pilots would react, and what contingencies were necessary if any misstep occurred. Her experience flying the C-130, managing crew and cargo under tight schedules, gave her an edge. The patience and foresight she honed in routine missions now allowed her to anticipate variables before they became threats. Minutes passed with relentless tension. His pulse remained steady, her focus absolute. The room watched her, some skeptical pilots whispering doubts, others observing silently with growing respect. Her calculations, once unrecognized in the mundane world of transport flights, were now being validated in real time. She was not just competent, she was exceptional under pressure. Viper Drone Group Delta is approaching civilian zone at high speed, Jackson's voice interrupted her thoughts. Fingers flew across the panel. Adjust intercept trajectory to Vector 55. Alpha Squadron maintain 4,000-foot altitude buffer. Civilian clearance confirmed. Monitor for erratic behavior. The response was immediate, precise. Felt a surge of controlled adrenaline. This was her element, the high-stakes problem-solving that combined logic, foresight, and rapid execution. She thrived in this pressure, each successful adjustment reinforcing her confidence. The simulation reached its climax. A rogue aircraft, unaccounted for in initial planning, approached from an unpredictable angle. Pilots hesitated, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. His voice cut through the tension like a lighthouse beam. Interception Vector 37-8. Maintain civilian clearance. Predict evasive maneuvers, adjust as necessary. Every pilot moved exactly as she predicted. The unknown threat was neutralized without incident, the exercise completed flawlessly. Cheers and murmurs of admiration rippled through the room. Even the skeptics could not deny her skill. After the exercise, leaned back in her chair, exhausted but exhilarated. Sanders placed a hand on her shoulder. Captain, you handled that better than anyone expected. You weren't just coordinating, you were predicting, controlling, leading. Allowed herself a small smile. Years of unnoticed diligence had culminated in this moment. Her quiet precision, her steady instincts, and her calm under pressure had finally been recognized where it mattered most. Commanders and observers began to approach. Major Jackson's nod was subtle but filled with unmistakable approval. Harper, your predictive skill is remarkable. You kept the exercise under control when even seasoned pilots struggled. I'll be recommending you for advanced tactical coordination." Exhaled, the weight of the recognition settling in. She had proven herself beyond doubt. Her abilities were no longer theoretical. They were demonstrated, undeniable, and respected. Yet with success came new pressures. Was aware that elite pilots and commanders would now scrutinize every move. Every decision in future operations would be measured against this benchmark. One mistake could erase credibility she had worked so hard to earn, but she welcomed the challenge. Her years as a transport pilot had taught her patience, precision, and perseverance. Mistakes were not failures, they were lessons, and she had learned more in routine flights than many could in years of high-stakes maneuvers. Later that evening, reviewed the exercise logs, noting every decision, every vector, and every outcome. She analyzed her timing, her predictions, and her communication. Each insight was meticulously recorded, forming a blueprint for future missions. She understood now that her role extended beyond the cockpit. She was shaping airspace operations, influencing outcomes before a fighter even took off. The C-130 had been her first domain, the transport missions her foundation. But now her influence had expanded, her reach extending to elite squadrons and high-stakes engagements. As night fell, returned to her quarters, reflecting on the day. The thrill of success was tempered by humility. Her journey from unnoticed transport pilot to respected tactical coordinator was still fragile, built on performance and trust. Yet she knew one truth. Her instincts were sound, her calm reliable, and her skill undeniable. Viper was no longer just a call sign. It was a symbol of competence, calm, and authority. Harper understood that the tests were far from over. Each simulation, each exercise was preparing her for the realities she might face in the skies, real-world operations where stakes were measured in lives, not training points. Her confidence had grown, tempered by awareness and responsibility. She had faced complex scenarios, guided elite pilots, and controlled chaos with precision. Each moment reinforced the truth she had long suspected. Her years in routine transport had prepared her perfectly for extraordinary challenges. Before sleep, allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. She remembered the early mornings, the foggy takeoffs, and the repetitive cargo runs that had once seemed so ordinary. Each mission had taught discipline, foresight, and responsibility, skills now essential in high-stakes operations. She realized the extraordinary did not appear out of nowhere. It emerged from preparation, persistence, and the courage to act when called upon. And Harper, known now as Viper, was ready. The early dawn light spilled across the tarmac as Harper stepped into the cockpit of her C-130. The world below was quiet, peaceful, almost deceptively calm. Yet in the skies above, tension was already brewing. Intelligence had detected an unidentified aircraft approaching Allied airspace at high speed, its trajectory erratic, unpredictable, and dangerously close to civilian zones. His heart, usually steady, tightened with anticipation. This was not a simulation. This was real. Lives, property, and military assets could be at stake, and she would be the one guiding the response. Major Jackson's voice crackled over the radio. "Viper, we're initiating intercept protocol. Unknown aircraft moving northeast at 650 knots. Civilian zones at risk. Confirm engagement vector." His fingers flew over the communication panel, cross-checking radar, flight plans, and civilian airspace data. Her mind raced, calculating intercept paths, safe altitudes, and predictive maneuvers for the F-35s. "Copy that, Major. Recommend initial intercept vector 378. Maintain 3,000-foot separation for civilian clearance. Monitor for evasive patterns." Every word was measured, calm, and authoritative. The pilots trusted her judgment, and she could not afford hesitation. As the F-35s surged into the skies, guided them through the engagement protocol. Her voice was calm, precise, each command a lifeline for pilots maneuvering at extreme speed. The unknown aircraft began unpredictable turns, testing every calculation she had made. Recalculated intercept points, anticipating the rogue craft's moves before they occurred. The F-35s adjusted seamlessly, a testament to the precision of her directives. For a transport pilot who had spent years ferrying cargo, this was a surreal transformation. Her voice now dictated life-or-death outcomes in real time. "Viper," Jackson said, tension audible in his tone, "craft is veering towards civilian air corridor. You have vector control." His eyes narrowed on the instruments. Time stretched thin, each second in consequence. She calculated evasive patterns, altitude adjustments, and interception angles simultaneously. Alpha Squadron, adjust heading 20 degrees north. Bravo, maintain altitude buffer of 4,000. Civilian corridor confirmed safe. Engage only if trajectory breaches restricted zone. The jets obeyed immediately, moving like extensions of her will. Could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down, yet she thrived under it. Years of methodical transport missions had honed her patience and attention to detail. The high-stakes decision-making of a fighter scenario was merely a different application of the same skills. Calm, precision, and foresight, her silent strengths, now held the fate of lives in their balance. The unknown aircraft shifted again, an unpredictable maneuver sending the F-35s into tight banking formations. Anticipated each move, directing pilots to adjust altitude, heading, and timing. Sweat beaded at her temple, but her voice remained steady. Maintain formation. Predict evasive patterns. Intercept vector adjusted to 42.5. Civilian clearance maintained. Seconds later, the rogue aircraft altered course, moving away from populated areas. The F-35s responded with flawless precision. Exhaled quietly, relief washing over her but tempered by awareness. The mission wasn't over until the threat exited Allied airspace entirely. Minutes later, confirmation came. The aircraft had left the restricted zone, no collisions, no casualties, no incidents. Pulse began to slow, though adrenaline still coursed through her veins. "Excellent work, Viper," Jackson said, his voice a mixture of admiration and respect. "Your predictive guidance kept this clean. Exceptional performance under extreme pressure." Allowed herself a small smile. The exhilaration of having orchestrated a real-world intercept, one with actual risk, not simulation, was unlike anything she had experienced. She had gone from the quiet routine of cargo missions to commanding elite fighters in a situation where timing, calculation, and nerve meant everything. And she had succeeded. Her reputation as Viper was now cemented not through drills or simulations, but in a tangible, life-saving outcome. After the mission, debriefed with command officers. Every detail of her calculations, communications, and real-time adjustments was reviewed. Comments of awe and respect followed. Some pilots who had previously doubted her expertise now nodded in recognition. His focus remained humble but firm. She had been prepared, trained, and capable. The defining moment had proven not only her skill, but also her ability to stay composed under unprecedented stress. She understood more than ever that competence and courage often spoke louder than rank or prior experience. Later, back in her quarters, reflected on the day. She thought of the lives potentially saved by her decisions, the precision with which she had guided elite fighters, and the calm clarity that had sustained her throughout. The transformation she had felt was profound. The call sign Viper was no longer a simple identifier. It was a mark of competence, authority, and reliability. She had been a transport pilot, often overlooked, yet now she had stepped fully into a role that demanded respect from the most elite of her peers. Her reflection was interrupted by a quiet message from Major Jackson. "Viper, mission logs reviewed. Exceptional performance. Recommendation for advanced tactical coordination forthcoming." Allowed herself a rare moment of pride. She had faced real-world danger, managed it with calm and precision, and earned acknowledgement from the pilots she had once only observed from afar. This was her moment, her defining mission, the one that would shape her career and reputation from this day forward. As the night deepened, sat at her desk, analyzing her decisions and outcomes. She understood the significance of her role. The right directive at the right moment could prevent disaster. Her years as a transport pilot, her quiet diligence, careful planning, and calm problem-solving had prepared her for this. The ordinary work, unnoticed by many, had forged the extraordinary capabilities she now demonstrated. Harper, once overlooked, had become indispensable. Finally, she allowed herself to relax, the adrenaline ebbing away. The hum of the base at night, the distant glow of runway lights, and the quiet air of accomplishment surrounded her. Harper, call sign Viper, had faced the ultimate test and emerged not just successful, but transformed. Her ordinary beginnings as a transport pilot were no longer her defining identity. She had proven that true skill, calm under pressure, and the courage to act could elevate anyone, ordinary or elite, to extraordinary heights. And as she prepared to rest, knew one truth with certainty: her journey was far from over. Today had defined her skill, tomorrow would define her legacy. The base was buzzing with unusual activity. Harper, call sign Viper, was no longer just the dependable transport pilot. Today, her role had shifted officially. Major Jackson had recommended her for advanced tactical coordination, and command had approved. Orders were issued. She would participate in joint exercises with F-35 squadrons not as an observer, but as a recognized coordinator, fully integrated into elite operations planning. Walked toward the briefing room, her mind alert, yet calm. This was unfamiliar territory. She was stepping further into a world she had once admired from a distance, now expected to contribute at the highest level. Inside the briefing room, several fighter pilots eyed her with varying expressions: curiosity, skepticism, and in a few cases, respect. Acknowledged each silently, her composure unwavering. She understood that perceptions mattered as much as performance. Some pilots had long-standing assumptions. Transport pilots were reliable for routine operations, but strategic coordination was another realm entirely. Had shattered those assumptions in real-time missions, but she knew one flawless performance didn't erase years of entrenched doubt. Every move, every word, every calculation now would be scrutinized more closely. Major Jackson entered, his presence commanding attention. "Today, Viper," he began, "you'll lead coordination in a series of complex tactical exercises. This will include real-time threat assessments, vectoring of multiple squadrons, and rapid decision-making under dynamic conditions. We've observed your instincts and precision. Now it's time to integrate them fully with our elite pilots." He paused, scanning the room. "Take this seriously. Lives, outcomes, and operational credibility depend on your guidance." Nodded, acknowledging both responsibility and opportunity. The exercise began. Radar screens lit up with simulated threats, friendly aircraft, and neutral entities. Took a deep breath, settling into familiar rhythm. Every calculation, every prediction, every directive had to be precise. Her past experiences, the long hours flying cargo, monitoring crews, and ensuring flawless delivery, had honed her attention to detail. Now, that skill was amplified in real time, directing aircraft capable of unimaginable speed and maneuverability. The room's tension was palpable. Each decision she made could simulate success or catastrophic failure. Minutes into the exercise, a scenario escalated. Multiple hostile drones advanced toward civilian zones while several friendly units were in vulnerable positions. His mind raced, analyzing trajectories, calculating safe intercept points, and predicting pilot responses. Alpha Squadron, Vector 45-7, altitude maintain 4,000. Bravo Squadron, intercept Delta threat at Vector 37-8. Civilian clearance confirmed, she instructed. Each pilot executed flawlessly, trusting her judgment completely. His calm authority transformed doubt into coordinated action, her voice the linchpin of the operation. Despite her growing recognition, faced subtle pressures. Some elite pilots still tested boundaries, questioning her directives or hesitating in split-second moments. Remained unfazed, recognizing that her credibility, now public within elite circles, depended not only on skill but also on composure. Every hesitation or error could reinforce doubt. She embraced the challenge. using each interaction to reinforce her authority without confrontation. Respect was earned through consistency, precision, and reliability, not through argument. Exercise intensified. Threats, patterns became unpredictable, and the simulation demanded rapid recalculations. Years of methodical planning and predictive analysis in transport missions now proved invaluable. She anticipated moves, adjusted intercepts, and guided pilots through complex aerial maneuvers with a confidence that was growing into mastery. She realized with a quiet satisfaction that her ordinary career had been training for this extraordinary responsibility all along. As the scenario reached its climax, a rogue simulated aircraft breached a civilian corridor. Pilots hesitated, uncertainty flickering. Voice, calm yet commanding, cut through hesitation. Maintain formation. Intercept at Vector 42-5. Civilian corridor confirmed safe. Execute evasive maneuvers only as calculated. The jets followed her directives exactly. Minutes later, the exercise concluded successfully. Every threat was neutralized, civilian zones were protected, and friendly units remained secure. Murmurs of admiration filled the room, and even the most skeptical pilots nodded in acknowledgement. Afterward, Major Jackson debriefed the group. "Viper, your performance today was exceptional. Every calculation, prediction, and directive was precise. Your integration with our squadrons has proven seamless. You've elevated coordination standards and demonstrated the reliability we require in high-stakes operations." Absorb the praise quietly, letting it settle without arrogance. Recognition was welcome, but humility kept her grounded. She understood that trust, once earned, had to be maintained, and every future mission would test it further. Spent the following weeks training alongside the F-35 pilots. These sessions were rigorous, blending simulation with live exercises. She observed their techniques, refined her real-time calculations, and enhanced her communication methods. The experience was immersive, pushing her physical and mental endurance, yet thrived. Each new challenge expanded her capabilities, integrating her transport experience with elite combat coordination. The pilots she once observed from afar now considered her an essential partner. Viper was no longer a name whispered on comms. It was a symbol of trust and capability. Personal challenges accompanied her professional rise. The transition from routine operations to high-stakes coordination brought increased scrutiny, longer hours, and intense responsibility. Some colleagues struggled to reconcile her past as a transport pilot with her new influence. However, remained focused, letting results speak louder than assumptions. She understood that respect in elite circles was built gradually, through performance under pressure, consistency, and the quiet authority of competence. Her call sign, once just a routine identifier, now carried weight, expectation, and responsibility. As nights drew long and missions grew complex, occasionally reflected on her journey. The early mornings ferrying cargo, the repetitive yet vital routines, the quiet diligence, each had prepared her for this moment. Every calculation, every decision, every ounce of calm under pressure became a foundation for her extraordinary role. She realized that recognition and skill were intertwined with patience and persistence. Extraordinary moments, she understood, were rarely sudden. They emerged from preparation, opportunity, and the courage to act decisively when called. One evening, after a particularly intense simulation, returned to her quarters, exhausted yet invigorated. She reviewed logs, analyzed her decisions, and refined her predictive models. The growth was tangible. Her career had evolved beyond routine transport missions into a dynamic, high-responsibility role. She was no longer merely ferrying cargo or ensuring schedules. She was shaping airspace, guiding elite pilots, and influencing outcomes that mattered profoundly. Viper had become both identity and legacy, a symbol of transformation and capability. And in the quiet of the night, Harper understood one unshakable truth. She had stepped beyond expectation, transforming skill into influence, routine into mastery. The ordinary path she once followed had forged extraordinary abilities, and every mission, every command, Every calculation reinforced her place among the most respected in the skis. The journey was ongoing, the challenges ever-present, but Harper, Viper, was ready. The morning air was crisp as Harper approached the C-130, a low sun glinting off its steel frame. Today was unlike any mission she had ever flown. Intelligence reports indicated multiple unidentified aircraft approaching Allied airspace, some with erratic flight paths dangerously close to populated areas. Unlike simulations or controlled exercises, this was real. Civilian lives, critical infrastructure, and military assets hung in the balance. Her role was pivotal. She would coordinate the intercepts, manage airspace, and guide elite F-35 pilots in real time. Every instinct, every calculation, every ounce of calm she possessed would be tested. "Viper, this is Jackson. All assets are in position. You have vector control," came the familiar voice over the comm. Hands rested briefly on the panel, eyes scanning radar feeds. The tension in the cockpit was almost tangible, yet her focus was absolute. "Copy that, Major. Initiating intercept protocol. Alpha Squadron Vector 38-5. Bravo Squadron maintain 3,000-foot altitude separation. Civilian clearance confirmed," she reported. Every word was deliberate, every instruction precise. The first blips appeared on the radar, small dots moving unpredictably toward restricted airspace. His mind shifted into overdrive. She analyzed trajectories, predicted evasive maneuvers, and coordinated squadron responses with a calm precision that had become her signature. Delta threat approaching Vector 42-7. Predictive intercept in 30 seconds. Maintain formation, monitor civilian corridors, she instructed. The pilots responded instantly, executing her guidance with exactitude. Felt the familiar surge of controlled adrenaline, the thrill of responsibility, the satisfaction of precise execution. Minutes stretched like hours. Hostile aircraft altered course, testing the limits of prediction and coordination. Recalculated intercepts in real time, issuing constant adjustments. Alpha, Vector adjust 20 degrees north. Bravo, altitude maintain 3,000. Civilian zone clearance confirmed. Intercept in progress, she said. Each movement required split-second decision-making. Hesitation could result in disaster. Sanders monitored quietly beside her, his respect for now profound and unwavering. The once-overlooked transport pilot had become the linchpin of elite operations. The tension escalated as one rogue aircraft neared a civilian corridor. Pilots hesitated, uncertainty flickering across their HUDs. Voice, steady and authoritative, cut through hesitation. Engage only if trajectory breaches civilian zones. Maintain formation. Intercept Vector 45-8. Predict evasive maneuvers and adjust accordingly. Her calculations proved flawless. Within moments, the aircraft altered course under the precise influence of the F-35 pilot's maneuvers. Lives were safeguarded, assets protected, and the mission remained under control. Skill, focus, and calm judgment had prevented catastrophe. The final phase of the operation required coordination across multiple squadrons simultaneously. Issued instructions for altitude adjustments, vector changes, and threat prioritization. She anticipated moves, guided pilots, and maintained safety protocols, all while monitoring civilian airspace. Her voice was the calm constant amid chaos, and every pilot executed directives flawlessly. By the time the last aircraft exited the restricted zone, the mission was complete. No casualties, no incidents, no errors. Harper had orchestrated a perfect intercept. Back at the base, the debrief was immediate and intense. Major Jackson and senior commanders praised leadership, precision, and foresight. "Viper," Jackson said, his tone reflecting both relief and admiration, "you've set a new standard for tactical coordination. Your calm under pressure, predictive accuracy, and authoritative guidance have ensured mission success under real-world conditions. You've proven that leadership, insight, and preparation matter as much as pilot skill. Today, you didn't just coordinate aircraft. You saved lives and set a benchmark for all future operations." Listened quietly, her pride tempered by humility. Recognition had been a constant companion over the past weeks, but today was different. This mission was tangible, life-altering, and indisputable. Her journey from routine transport pilot to respected tactical coordinator had reached a culmination. Every cargo flight, every calculated maneuver in less critical missions, every hour spent mastering procedures had led to this defining moment. The following days brought formal acknowledgement. Received commendations from command, official integration into elite tactical operations, and invitations to train new coordinators. Her colleagues, both former skeptics and allies, now regarded her with respect and admiration. Viper, the call sign that had once been unremarkable, had become synonymous with precision, calm under pressure, and exceptional leadership. Yet transformation was not only professional. The experience had reshaped her perspective on responsibility, teamwork, and the latent potential within ordinary roles. She understood that skill and opportunity, when combined with courage and preparation, could transform lives. She reflected on the countless missions she had flown quietly, unseen, uncelebrated. Each one had prepared her for extraordinary responsibility. What seemed routine in one context became vital in another. Her career, once predictable and confined, had evolved into something remarkable. This journey also inspired others. Young transport pilots and crew members who had long assumed that their roles were limited began to see possibilities beyond routine duties. The message was clear. Excellence, preparation, and calm judgment could elevate anyone to extraordinary impact. Harper became a living example, proof that the difference between ordinary and extraordinary was often courage, focus, and the willingness to rise when opportunity and responsibility aligned. In the quiet moments after missions, would often sit at the base, staring at the night sky, reflecting on the journey. From her first flights as a young transport pilot to coordinating F-35 intercepts in high-stakes scenarios, the transformation was profound. She had earned the respect of elite pilots, navigated skepticism, and proven her capabilities under extreme pressure. Viper was no longer just a call sign, it was legacy, authority, and recognition. Sanders, ever her loyal co-pilot, watched her in admiration. "You've changed everything," he said one evening. "You've shown everyone what's possible," smiled, modest yet satisfied. "It's not about me," she replied. "It's about being prepared when the moment comes. Every mission, every hour of training, every quiet day flying cargo mattered. That's what makes the difference." Her eyes drifted to the horizon, the glow of runway lights reflecting the sky. Harper, transport pilot turned tactical coordinator, had transcended expectations. She had faced the extraordinary, mastered it, and left a mark not just on operations, but on the people around her. Viper would be remembered, not just as a name in the comms, but as a symbol of what skill, preparation, and calm resolve could achieve. And as the base settled into the quiet of night, knew one unshakable truth. Her journey was a testament to the ordinary becoming extraordinary, to preparation meeting opportunity, and to courage meeting responsibility. She had flown unseen, excelled in silence, and now she had left a legacy in the skies, a legacy that would inspire, guide, and endure.